Good morning. I heard a rumor this used to be a roller skating rink. All skate to the right. But before I start with my lesson, I want to congratulate you as a collective group, a consciousness, as this spiritual community. You hold a bright light, not just in this community, but in the New Thought movement in general. Your beloved Reverend Edward is thought of as one of the true stars in the highest spiritual sense in the New Thought movement. And your spiritual community here is thought of truly as one of the crown jewels in all of New Thought. So I congratulate you. Yeah. And you know what? It does. It takes a spiritual community to hold that consciousness together. It's not just Reverend Edward or the staff. And it's a collective group called spiritual community. And I honor you for that. I truly do. So the art of being on purpose is what I want to talk to you about this morning. And it's kind of a setup for the class that we'll do this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Which is about mindfulness practices, really learning how to be on purpose in your life. I'm going to start out by giving you a Reader's Digest version of the creation story by Dennis Merritt Jones. Ready? In the beginning, there was only God. Still is. The end. Thank you. Well, some people say, well, can you go a little deeper than that? You know, so here's, and this relates to being on purpose, okay? In the beginning, there was only God, and God so fully desired to know itself, to experience itself, to expand upon its own divine nature, that the only way it could do it is think itself into form. And so, basically, you are it. The one sitting next to you is it. These beautiful, the environment around here is it. Everything that is alive and animate, as well as inanimate, is that which finds the expression, acts as the vessel through which God experiences itself. To make it a little bit more applicable, or perhaps to embody the idea, let me share a story with you or a setup, a metaphor that will serve as an example for that. God, if you can imagine God in the beginning, is all there is. Of course, we still know that is all that is. But God in its pure essence, talking to itself as individuated little goblets of itself called soul, spirit. And it's speaking to these souls before they are incarnate here. And God says to each of these soul beings, He says, soul beings, you have a purpose. I'm going to send you on a mission. Your mission, see that little planet over there in the corner of the galaxy called the Earth? I want you to go there. And I want you to be me. No small task. He says, now to serve your mission, your purpose, I'm going to give you a body. You could call it a uniform. Get used to it. It's the only one you're going to get on this journey, so take good care of it. And by the way, I'm also going to give you a personality by means of which you will create the most interesting growth opportunities in your life. And so the last thing we hear as soul beings before we exit and come here and find ourselves here in this form, God whispers to us as we're leaving, by the way, you're going to forget all of this. And so here we are in this spiritual community, in the most progressive spiritual teaching on the planet, I think, beginning to remember, to come back to. Means come, remember to the whole, to come back to our wholeness, understanding that we are the very living presence of the divine. The very living presence of the divine. And, you know, here's the key. You wouldn't be in this spiritual community if that wasn't already stirring with you. Can I get a witness for that? It's stirring, and you can feel it on the planet. It's stirring. New Thought's growing in amazing ways, and you're part of that. You're part of that. You can think of it this way. The universe, everything that is on purpose, that is serving its purpose for being, thrives. The universe conspires to support everything that is serving its purpose. The infinite intelligence moves through it, expanding upon it in great ways. And so our goal is to really understand what it means to be on purpose on a daily basis, understanding that we do that, the universe does its part, and we thrive and grow, and we expand in amazing ways. Socrates said something very profound. He knew that when we're on purpose, we create a life worth living. He said, the unexamined life isn't worth living. And so this I'm going to invite you to step into self-inquiry for the next 20 minutes with me and begin to examine what your life looks like and see if it's really on purpose and what can you do to bring it more into alignment with that purpose, which you'll find it's not as hard as you may think it is. Every master teacher, every avatar from antiquity has given the students the same 4 questions that we ask ourselves. The first one is, of course, who am I? Second question is, where did I come from? And the third question is, probably the most asked, what am I doing here? Have you ever asked yourself that question? And where am I going to go when I leave here? Of course, we know that the answer to all 4 of those questions is one word: God, 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 God. Who you are is the essence of God. You're here to be it. And when you leave here, you will continue back into the essence of the ethers of which it is. And so when you realize that that's the truth, you enter consciously the journey of a lifetime. And it literally is, you realize that you are on a journey back to the place you never really left. Your oneness with the divine. Yes? Nothing changes but form. And yet we find ourselves struggling so hard sometimes to realize that you don't have to wait to have a spiritual experience until everything is perfect in your life. You can, on your worst day on the planet, you're having a spiritual experience, you just may not be aware of it. And so conscious is better than unconscious when it comes to realizing you're a spiritual being, right? You know, we struggle. There's a story that I want to share with you. A student was sitting on the riverbank. He knew that he wanted to manifest his oneness with God and to be that divine expression of the one. And so he's chanting almost violently. He's just trying to convince himself, I am one with God. I am one with God. I am one with God. And he continues this chant. And a master teacher walks by. And he observes what this student is doing. So he walks up next to him and sits down on the riverbank next to him. And calmly, he picks up his walking stick with one hand and his bowl, begging bowl with the other hand, and he says, this is my stick. This is my bowl. This is my stick. This is my bowl. And the student hears this, and he looks at him, and so he starts chanting even harder, I am one with God. I am one with God. The master continues, this is my stick. This is my bowl. Pretty soon the student stops. He says, all right already, I get it. Any fool can see. They know that that's your stick and that's your bowl. Can't you see I'm trying to have a spiritual experience here? And of course the master turns to the student and says, and any fool knows you already are having a spiritual experience. Why are you trying to be so hard that which you already are? And see, there's our journey. To realize that we don't have to struggle to have a spiritual experience. We're having a spiritual, it's actually having us. And when we become conscious of it, we can then bring purpose to being on the planet with everything that we say, think, and do. I want to give you 3 questions you can ask yourself, and we will delve more into these in the class this afternoon. 3 questions you can use as a litmus test to see if your life is on purpose. And these will be anchor points for you that you'll really be able to identify with. May I take my jacket off? Is it warm in here, or is it just me? Thank you. I did see it. Here's the first question. Am I having fun? How often do we wake up every morning and ask that question consciously? Am I having fun today? That's a choice, isn't it? What happens when you're having fun? What do you experience? Joy. You become the vessel of the feeling nature of life in its present moment. You realize that when you're, last month I did this talk in Hawaii, and I was in the speaking, and I asked that question, where are you when you're having fun? And there was a guy in the back of the room, he says, well, we're at the beach, dude. That's not a location. It's a state of mind I'm talking about. Present moment. You know that when you're having fun, you're always in the current moment, yes? When you're having fun, when joy is the moment, when you're having joy, you're enjoying, you realize that you're not thinking about the future or the past, you're in the present moment. That's where being takes place. You can't be tomorrow or yesterday. Be here now. And so, to illustrate this point, I was, and how easy it is that our minds want our bodies to be someplace else. I was on a flight to Las Vegas from Burbank. I was doing a seminar at a church up in Las Vegas, and that's the gambler's flight. You all maybe don't know that from here, but that's the energy flight where everybody's on the flight is just, woohoo, we're going to Vegas. And in the process of just arriving over Las Vegas, the pilot comes on, intercom. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. I have some good news for you and some bad news for you." This is a true story. It's in my book. The good news is we've arrived over Las Vegas. Everybody goes, "Yay!" The bad news is they've closed down all the runways because of high desert winds, and so we're going to be circling around up here for a while until they can get us in one at a time. And pretty soon, he said, "Fasten your seat belts because it's going to be a bumpy ride with all these high winds." And no sooner did he say that, the plane started doing this. Have you ever been on a plane that dipped and rose like that? It was like a ride on a roller coaster at Disneyland or Magic Mountain. It was that violent of drops. Pretty soon, the plane got very still. And you can see everybody white knuckling. And of course, it continued to buck and dip, and all of a sudden, somebody fully utilized their air sickness container device, which means they hurled. And that, for those of you that don't know what an air sickness container device is, and no sooner, and then that odor began to waft through the cabin, and the plane's doing this, and all of a sudden, I mean, people were flying the airplane. They wanted to be on the ground. And all of a sudden, about 4 rows up on the left, I hear this, whee! Every time the plane would rise or dip. It's a true story. Whee! Everybody do that with me. Whee! Come on, get into it. Whee! There you go. It feels good, doesn't it? When I realized, I looked up, four rows up on the left side, there was a woman holding a toddler in her arms. Huh? And every time the plane would buck or dive or dip, this little boy would go, whee! And I'm thinking to myself, what fool doesn't know that their life is in peril here? And of course, it was a little 3-year-old boy. Why? I asked myself, what does he know that I don't know? And then I realized, it's not what he knows, it's what he doesn't know that I know. He didn't know the plane was about ready to go down. He didn't know that the odor wafting through the cabin was not pleasant. All he knew is that he was enjoying the ride. He was present in the moment because his mind wasn't taught to fear, so he was so present in the moment he was enjoying the experience. He didn't label it bad. Hello? How's the ride in your life going on a daily basis in those times where it could be, whee, but we're going, yeah. Where our minds want our bodies to be someplace other than where they are. Yes? So the first key is to be present in the moment, because that's where being happens, and find the ability through exploring how every moment, you can turn any moment into a different experience if you choose to change your perspective of it. Yes? Yes. All right. So that's the first question, how to be present in the moment. Ask yourself what you can do to have fun. Be the open vessel through which Spirit finds joy, the joy of being. Second question you get to ask yourself is this: am I growing every day? Am I growing every day? How often do you ask yourself that question? We grow either one of two ways, out of desperation or inspiration. Right? And most of us, we wait for desperation, then we grow, right? What if you could grow on a daily basis out of it being inspired rather than out of desperation? If you take, Ernest Holmes called this growth process the creative divine urge. He knew that there was some life intelligence within every living thing that was pushing out through it, wanting to be more tomorrow than it was yesterday. Yes? And all you have to do is look at any living thing and you'll see this growth process. Look at your fingernails. Look at your hair. Well, some of you don't look at your hair, but living things grow. So the question is, if I'm not growing, what am I doing? Here's the second part of Ernest Holmes' statement about the creative divine urge. He called it the universal imperative. Grow or die. Take a breath. It's growth in a different way, but what happens is if we stifle our growth. Have you ever seen a plant that was in a pot that needed to be repotted because the soil, the roots were root bound? What happens in that kind of an environment? The roots turn in on themselves, don't they? And they grow into, rather than out, into new soil. And what happens? The roots choke themselves off and it dies. Yes? And so to repot ourselves, to take ourselves and put ourselves in a growing environment, we have to create an opening to do that. We have to step out of the pot that we've been potted in. Yes? And sometimes, see, this is a crucially important concept. You can't grow from within the pot you're now in. You can't grow from within the known. People hate the unknown. They fear it, yes? But you know what? That's where all new growth happens. Look at your process going to school every year when you're growing up. Every year, you step into new things that you don't know yet in order to grow. And so, a lot of us, if you're not, here's the bottom line. If we're not growing, there's a part of us that's dying. We're root bound. If you're not growing, if your relationships are not growing, they're dying. If you're not growing spiritually, emotionally, part of you is withering up. If your church isn't growing, it's slowly not. Everything that's alive grows or begins to recede upon itself. And so you have to ask yourself this question, understanding that when you're being on purpose, life finds delight in pushing through you out into the unknown. And that's the process, is we have to step out of the box, because if we create from the known, we just create another version of the known, yes? So we step out of the box into the unknown, and that's where new growth takes place. That's where the roots can grow. And yet we have to become friends with the unknown. The title of my next book is going to be The Art of I Don't Know. How to live in the unknown and love it. Okay, that's my working title on it, because I think that's a big challenge. People get stuck because they're afraid to step out of the box. Can I get a witness? So what box are you in that you can choose today to begin to step out of? We'll talk more about that this afternoon in the workshop, by the way. A lot of that oftentimes has to do with the relationships and what we do for work, etc. Sometimes it's not what keeps us stuck. It's not necessarily, think of the labels that you've been given over your life that you wear that keep you stuck in a certain place. Yes? Have you any labels placed on you that you began to allow them to identify who you were? Not smart enough, not rich enough, not tall enough, not strong enough, not beautiful enough, and blah, 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 not enough something. When you begin to peel away those labels, you realize that maybe what you have to ask yourself is not who am I, but who am I not? And then through self-inquiry, you begin to challenge the labels that have been placed on you, and you step into, I can step into I don't know and see who I really am. And as I peel away the labels, you peel like an onion, you peel it down to the bare essence, and what is it? It's the great no-thingness, which is infinite intelligence, waiting to find delight through greater expression as you. Can I get a witness? I know, I sound like a Baptist, don't I? You give me hallelujah. Hallelujah! There you go. I'm sure Reverend Edward will never invite me back now, but that's a... Third question. Here's the third question. Okay? We have, am I having fun? Am I growing every day? Because remember, having fun, being present moment, and growing is where presence finds its expression. Okay? The third question, and this is a very profound one, and it's very important. Am I lifting others? Am I serving others on this planet? Am I taking who I am and getting outside of myself and extending myself to others? There's one way you can tell if you're in that mode or not. We hang out with either lifter uppers or puller downers. Can you identify with that? You have any puller downers in your life? There's a metaphor that they use in fishing communities where they'll drop a big basket into the bay of the ocean, and they'll put some bait in it. The fishermen will put bait in it, and the crabs will climb into it to eat the bait. And then when the bait's gone and they try to climb out, the other crabs will pull the one climbing out and pull it down. And if he tries again, they'll pull it down and pull off his claws. Yeah, bummer, huh? Folks, here's the metaphor. We all have crabs in our life. Stay conscious, all right? So the question is, when you become a lifter-upper, you realize that in that process, if God is all there is, if you're lifting others, what are you doing? You're lifting the divine. And you're lifting yourself too, yes? Somebody said that God does it all. We know that there's only one of us here. Somebody said that God does it all with mirrors. God's a real prankster. And it looks like there's many of us here. He does it all with mirrors. There's only one of us here. And so as we give ourselves the gift of being conscious in our relationships, every relationship becomes an opportunity to look into the mirror of myself and see the divine looking back at itself. And in that process, you realize that who you are, what you do on the planet, every relationship matters. Every relationship is another opportunity for you to get out of your box, to grow, to serve. Whether you do it through your spiritual community or in the larger community, you don't have to do big and wonderful things to make a difference and lift others. Maybe it's just offering somebody a positive thought when they're standing in the line at the bank being a crabby day. Just small things, but it's consciously serving others. Here's the deal. When you get to heaven, which is a metaphor, right? We know heaven and hell are where? Just states of mind, right? But when you leave this planet and you get back and you're knocking on heaven's door, you're going to be asked two questions. First one is, did you love well? Second question is the planet a better place today than it was when you got there because you were there? And if you can answer yes to both of those, you will have been on purpose. You will have lived your life on purpose. And so you don't have to try to have a spiritual experience. You're already having it. You know, a heartbeat monitor, it goes beep, 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 beep. Yes? What does that mean? It's a good sign, right? It means you're alive. Generally, that's a good sign. What does this mean? Beep. Not a good sign, right? So use that metaphor of highs and lows. There's as much God's presence in the mountaintop as there in the valleys, but we go unconscious in the valleys. We have to have the complement of both to have the rich fullness of experience. We have to understand the polarities of life in order to enjoy the highs. We have to know what the lows are, but not compromise ever forgetting that God's presence is there too. Yes? So you don't have to try to have a spiritual experience. You're already having it. The question is, can you do it consciously? And trust me, conscious is more better than unconscious. Okay? More better, yeah. Yeah, and so it's back to that, am I growing? You know, you're going to do it through inspiration or desperation. Choose inspiration. Choose to live proactively. And you know what happens at the end of your life on the planet when you reach your final breath? You will have that moment, that aha moment. And you realize that if you lived your life on purpose, if you really honored your contract with God and you came here to be the highest developed vessel through which and as which it, by means of you, experiences itself, you will know that you have been the one who has brought heaven to earth.